Alright guys, so this is another Patreon request, and this one comes from Lamanta Benson, who asked me to do a Patreon request. Their Patreon request was basically top 10 redeemed villains in anime. So, yeah. As always, before we get started, if you guys would like to have a Patreon request done, just hit the link below. Head on over to my Patreon, where you guys can start sending me requests for videos to do here on YouTube. Plus, you know, lets you access all the other stuff here on Patreon as well, the exclusive content over there too. But anyway, let's get started with this video. And as always, with this with these top 10 videos, these are just my personal opinion. If you think a character should be higher or lower on the list, that's totally fine. I'm always excited to hear what you guys have to say in the comments below. So without further ado, let's get started with number 10. And number 10 is Ken. Not Barbie Ken, I'm talking Digimon Ken. Ken was the Digimon Emperor, and he was more or less a guy who felt like he was kind of alone out in the world. He was a guy who was too smart, for the embodiment of too smart for his own good. This was a dude who was more or less like, hey, no one is as smart as me, no one is as clever as me, and I'm gonna do shit, and I'm gonna, like, why should I bend the knee to other people when I could just go out and rule them? Like, that was his kind of mindset, was like, why should I go out and do this kind of stuff if I can just do it myself? Like, I can be my own king. And here's what happened when he became the Digimon Emperor. Ken was a lot of fun. He eventually became friends with Davis. He, of course, accepted Wormmon from henchman to friend, to good friend, and yeah, became one of the most likable characters in Digidestin. It was a great redemption arc for him. All of these characters have great redemption arcs. So, yeah. Anyway, so let's move on now to number 9. Number 9 is gonna be interesting because number 9 is was something you would not expect on here, because I don't talk about them a lot. I don't really talk about it because I'm not the biggest fan. And that's Gara from Naruto. Gara is a fascinating character because there are other characters who went from villain to evil and redeemed and unredeemed in Naruto. It's a carousel sometimes with those characters. But Gara was a lot of fun because Gara was more or less much like in Naruto's shoes, where Gara was basically here's a guy who was much like Naruto in that he was possessed by by one of the beasts, and instead of becoming, you know, he was still an outcast, but instead he was used as a weapon by his own father against the Village of the Leaf. So he was more or less, instead of like being, you know, like just an outcast, he was an outcast and a WMD. Isn't that all fun and games? But through the power of friendship, Naruto accepted him, and eventually he kind of became like a Nick Fury. Gara became like the Nick Fury of the universe, of the Naruto universe for a hot second. He kind of became like the go-to leader of all the other ninja villages for a hot second, so I'm told. Also, the sand powers are really cool. Let's be real. That fight with Kimimaru, or whatever, the bone guy, that fight was pretty fire. Anyway, so there you go. There's Gara. So let's move on to our next one on the list, number 8. I know I'm putting up a 3, but we're counting down like this. So number 8 on this list is Scar from Fullmetal Alchemist. Although this one would be you'd be kind of hard pressed to say this guy was a hero became a hero, because Scar was kind of on his own little agenda. But then again, when you find out what happened to his people, yeah, he's pretty justified in that regard. Scar is a brutal fighter. Here was a guy who, for lack of a better word, saw the worst of humanity and proceeded to just destroy all alchemists in the most bloody way possible. He kind of just John Wicked his way through everyone he saw and gave no remorse whatsoever. He was a brutal son of a bitch. but at the same time, he did kind of have a common ground with Edward. So it was a lot of fun to see. It was a lot of fun to see how that played out. So yeah. So there you go, Scar from Full Metal Alchemist. Anyway, so next up we are at number 7. We're at number 7. So number 7, number 7's pretty interesting because like I wasn't trying to put so many characters of the same list on here, so many characters from the same anime on here. It was a little hard pressed not to put this character on here, and that's Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z. Piccolo, yes, a lot of people forget that Piccolo did start out as an antagonist in Dragon Ball. And I'm talking about Junior. After his father, shot him off in the world to send him to have, to seek revenge on Goku for killing him, Piccolo Jr., our Piccolo, grew up, was an antagonist to Goku, and eventually grew from antagonist to real father to Gohan and everyone and the other younger members of the Z Fighters. Piccolo has also become a leader. He's a strong warrior. He's become one of the most intrinsic characters in the Dragon Ball lore. So yeah, I didn't want to put him on this list, but I was like, yeah, he did start out as a villain, and I'd be hard pressed not to put him on this list. Anyway, so let's move on now to number 6. Number 6 is a rather fascinating one because this is another one where I'm like, does this one count? I feel like this one kind of counts to an extent, and that's Father Anderson. I wouldn't say he's a redeemed villain per se, but I would say that he is a guy who had like an understanding from the other characters of what Alucard was, and Alucard was almost at peak. Like, yeah, dude, you can kill me. You're the first person I actually want to have kill me. And then Anderson fucked it up at the end. Again, a little hard to say he was redeemed, but there was like a level of respect between him and Alucard. So, fuck you. It's my list. That's all I can say. Anyway, so let's move on to the top 5. And yeah, so the top 5 is this one gets a little more difficult to talk about because again, so many characters, like it's really hard to say like who's redeemed and like who's like who you can see get redeemed or not, and where does redemption lie, especially in like forms of anime. But I will say that if we're going to redeem somebody who is a total asshat, who is a total dick, it would be Endeavor, because yeah, while not a villain, the dude's actions were very villainous. Yeah, I will like whatever. It's my list, and I'm not the biggest anime watcher, at least not popular anime, or else you'd be seeing like fucking One Piece and Naruto and other Naruto stuff. Yeah, I'm not a big Shonen Jump guy, guys. What the fuck do you want from me? Anyway, so Endeavor, you could consider him a villain because all of his actions led to, the trauma, Todoroki's trauma, and Dabi becoming the villain that he is now. And eventually realizing slowly through like actions with Hawks, through his interactions with his son, all of it made him a better person. Does it forgive his actions? No. But I do think his actions are eventually like, it's all get thrown in his face, and he's not like, I'm gonna be an asshole and ignore it. No, he actually like accepts it. So there we are at number 4. So, moving right along to the next person on this list. And the next person on this list, on this list was, I'm going to have to cheat again and put another character from the same anime, and that's Beelzemon. I'm actually going to do a tie real quick. Beelzemon and Black War Greymon from Digimon. Both characters are so similar that, like, it was hard-pressed not to have them on here. They're both antagonists who wanted to be stronger and wanted to be great warriors, but eventually they got what they deserved, but at the same time they wanted to be heroes in their own right. They went from antagonists to last-minute heroes, great fighters, and had excellent stories to their own rights. Yeah, Black War Greymon and Beelzemon. I was like, yeah, I don't want to know if I want to do that again, but yeah. So now we've come to the final three. Final three are characters, and some of you might have guessed who number one is. Let's talk about number three. Number three is Shishomaru. Shishomaru is a character who is a bastard in every shape or form. But I will say that, like, the dude is pretty... The dude, it does have his moments, especially Jokin and Rin, and eventually becomes a better person throughout the show. And as much as it disturbs me, yeah, he had kids with Rin. She went from calling him Daddy to Daddy, and that still creeps me out. But still, like, it's clear that he is the anime favorite of the show. But he did start out with, trying to kill Inuyasha and Kagome, and scheming with scheming to kill them to get Tetsaiga. But eventually did become the better hero a better hero throughout it in his own right. So, number two, Hiei from Yu Yu Hakusho. This is a guy who, the moment he showed up, I was like, yeah, that's the guy I want to follow. Hiei is a brutal son of a bitch, but he gets shit done, and he's a character who fought through his own traumas. He fought through all of his own insecurities and became a better demon for it, and became one of the guys that would slide for Yusuke and the others every chance. Every time shit went sideways, he would be right there to back him up. How many times was he the MVP? He and Kuwabara were the MVPs of the Dark Tournament arc. Don't fight me on that. You know it's true. So yeah, Hiei at number two. And number one, you know who it is. You know who number one is. Do I even need to say his name? It's Vegeta. Of course it's Vegeta. The dude is the embodiment of the of the villain redeemed arc. Dude literally started with trying to kill the planet, killed all of Goku's friends, and then got away, helped Gohan and Krillin, though to his own intentions, to battle Frieza, then became a Super Saiyan, saved Goku's life, killing it in 19, then went on to... Also, let's not forget that he sired another fun character with one of the best female characters in Dragon Ball Z, Bulma. Yeah, Mr. Steal Your Girl himself, Vegeta. And, yeah, it's, there's no other character. There's literally no other character in the anime, in this genre of animation. Even if you aren't a Dragon Ball Z fan, you have to, sit and acknowledge that, oh, yeah, it is Vegeta. Who else could it be out there, right? So it had to be, when I was doing this list, I was like, yeah, Vegeta's gonna be number one no matter what, because he's the embodiment of this whole thing. Anyway, so you guys tell me in the comments below, what are your top 10 redeemed villains in anime? Just comment below, let me know, and once again, I'd like to thank Lamonta Benson for this Patreon request and continued patronage. And also, I know some people are going to say Kaiba. Why wasn't Kaiba on this list? I was considering Kaiba, but that dude does not change at all. He doesn't want to help anyone. I also was thinking Merrick. I'll give Merrick Ishtar a honorable mention. But really, Kaiba. The reason why I didn't put Kaiba on this list was because that dude is 100% a prick all the time. He doesn't stop being a prick. The dude was so spiteful and wanted to take out the Pharaoh that the motherfucker built a time machine to go back in time and duel him just to fight him. Yeah, that's a level of pettiness I have not seen since ever. So there you go, guys. Once again, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.